Hey everybody, welcome back. This is going to be my October wrap up. So before we get into all that, I did participate in Gothtober Fest this year. So I'm going to kind of talk about those books first, then anything else that I read, I'm going to just talk about at the end. But awesome. It's cold outside, so I decided to be cozy. Got my flannel candle I bought recently lit, and yeah, let's get into it. So, firstly, for Gothtoberfest, or I don't even know, it's just called Gothtober 2020. Sorry about that. It's put on by LadetteM, and I'll have her channel and all of the stuff. I think there's a playlist link down below for that. It was a really fun time. I enjoyed it a lot, and I did try and only do one book per prompt, so to speak, but I definitely could have applied some of these books to other places, and I'll go back and talk about that at the end. So there's a little prompt doodad. I think it should flip around whenever y'all are watching this. But so I basically got officially for individual book titles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't count, sorry. 5, 8, 9 out of the 13 prompts. So I did listen to the audiobook for So You Want to Talk About Race by, I believe, Eli Ojomu. I'm really apologize for the pronunciation. So I put that under the BIPOC prompt because obviously it's talking about race and things like that, and it's written by an African American author. And I thought it was a really good read. I don't like to rate educational purpose books. Like, I'll rate nonfiction, but if it's kind of about me just trying to be a better human and educate myself, I try not to give ratings to it. But I did really enjoy the audiobook production of it. And I wouldn't like flip through the physical book in the store, and it was kind of the same. There wasn't anything I was missing in the audiobook. And I do think it was a really informative read. Yeah, so go check it out. It's a good one. For the lies prompt, I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Really enjoyed it. I can kind of see why it's like gothic literature. And I think it perfectly fit into this prompt. And I was wanting to read it before I watched the Netflix adaptation. I will say the whole age difference dynamic is obviously important for like the drama that happens in this book, but it was a little unnerving to me, obviously. And then there was also the character herself that is the unnamed main female lead. We don't actually learn her name, fun fact. But she was very whiny to me for most of the book, and that took a little bit away from it just because that's one of my biggest pet peeves with just like literature in general is when the characters are whiny and just kind of don't do anything to fix the situation they're in. Don't know what that says about me as a person, but I gave the book overall 4 out of 5 stars. I listened to the audio for it, and it was really well done. And the lady actually talked really slow, so it was really easy for me to listen to at like 1.85 speed without struggling at all. I try to not listen to my books too aggressively fast unless I'm trying to power through them. So I think it went well listening to it at that speed, and I really, really did enjoy it. And I'm gonna go watch the Netflix adaptation here shortly, probably this weekend. We'll see. I have this physical book. My books are not in a stack where I can access them. One second, everybody. Moving around. For the female protagonist prompt, I read Little Women by Louisa M. May, I believe, Alcott. This is the UK edition of the book, and I've heard that this particular version of the book lets you still be surprised by things in the movie adaptation. I have not seen the movie yet, so I'm excited to go watch it now that I finally got around to reading the book. This is not something that is like I would typically pick up and read. It was a copy that my cousin lent me, and I was really glad to read it. I did really enjoy it, but it took me a minute to get into, and again, it's a little bit more foo-foo-y than I typically choose to read, for lack of a better way to describe it. But basically you're following the sisters, and this particular edition, I don't know about the other ones because they are different, is told in like little snippets of time where things and events happen. For example, this chapter is Joe meets Apollyon, and then the next one is Meg goes to Vanity Fair. Experiments. Camp Lawrence. So it's kind of just like a chunks of time told story, and I thought that was very interesting to read. Overall, I believe I give it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a simple read. It was very accessible, and I did enjoy it, and it did bring me joy, which is why else do you read? So yeah, Little Women, good time. The next prompt is foreign country, and I read The Plague by Albert Camus. He's from France, and then the book, I believe, is set in Algeria, in a city called Oran. I'm not sure if that's a fictional or real place or not, but Algeria is a country that is not the United States. So, I obviously read this for a book club, and sir, you are depressing, Albert Camus. And, I mean, I enjoyed the book. I think it was definitely a little too close-fitting to the pandemic we're currently living in, because you basically follow this cast of characters, and there is a narrator who is unnamed for a majority of the story, so I will not, I won't spoil that, obviously, but basically, I think this is definitely a study of Albert Camus trying to kind of test the, like, reliable versus unreliable narrator experience. But the plot of the book, while interesting, was the language was not super accessible. I mean, I was able to obviously read it and enjoy it, but it was definitely like heavier language and also heavy topics, especially because like we're in a pandemic presently. So the fact that people are going into quarantine and like losing faith in society and medicine and science and religion and like their leadership and stuff like that is definitely like the yellow flag. I don't know if y'all can see, like, I don't know what y'all can see or not, is basically like, this is an exact replica of what we're experiencing in 2020. So obviously maybe don't read it right now, but I did enjoy the book, and it like is a really pretty copy, and I'm not going to get it, but I have The Stranger by Albert Camus, and it's like the same black and white, I believe vintage. I believe it's the vintage Random House collection. Anywho, not really sure, but it was a good read. I think I'm gonna give it overall a 3 out of 5 stars. Just because probably like I said when I read The Stand earlier this year, like probably shouldn't have read this right now. So my bad at that one. The next book prompt we got is that I was able to do is oldest purchased book. And I mean, I didn't technically like purchase this a long time ago, but it was written originally in, let me see, one moment here. The story was originally written sometime around the 1880s, so I'm a stretch that one and count it, but it's Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So this is a collection of all of his stories, but I only read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So, oldest purchased book. Kind of a stretch. The story itself was interesting. It was actually a lot shorter than I expected. I thought it was like a full book. It's not. It's a short story. It's even, like, in my opinion, too short to be a novella, but anywho, I enjoyed it. It was really good. Got to put some of the... Because I knew kind of what the story was about, but it was definitely, like, interesting to read the whole thing in one go. So, yeah. I don't really have a rating for this one. I enjoyed it. I probably could give it, like, a 3 stars. This wrap-up video is going well, can you tell? I'm very tired. I read Desperation by Stephen King, and all it said was red, and I really enjoyed it. I think that the plot was actually really good. I've been struggling with some King books recently just because the plot doesn't move forward as fast as I'd like it to, but I'm gonna give this one, I think, a 5 out of 5 stars. The suspense was super there. The villain and there's actually like fantastical elements in this one. Fun fact: it was a great book. I was buddy reading it with the book Brainiac, along with buddy reading Misery, which I'll talk about that one when I get there, but and I'll have all of her stuff linked down below. I believe she did specific review videos for each of the books. I won't be doing specific review videos for this, Misery, and Carrie. I was supposed to read Carrie in October. Did I get to it? No. To just add to my Stephen King video collection. I talked about this in the last video I put up. But anywho, Desperation was really good. I liked it a lot. And basically there's this town, I believe is in Arizona, like that's where it's theoretically set, and basically this cop kind of loses his mind and kills everybody in the town, and then goes out and tries to kill people that are on the road or just that like had a flat tire, ran out of gas, and it's scary, it's suspenseful, the magic is crazy. The whole cast of characters having to work together and all of that to attempt to survive is also a super, super captivating storyline. So this book, believe it or not, is only like 600 pages. This particular edition is the Stephen King library one, but I found it at Half Price Books for $3 like a year ago, and I finally got around to reading it. But the text is really big and the pages are really thick, so I think I read this like 100 pages a day was the buddy read experience. So yeah, go check it out. It was actually really good. No longer disappointed in some Stephen King books. But so next we gotta unlock my phone here. Undead Character. I listened to the audiobook production of Dracula, vampire, Undead Character. That book was crazy. Like it was actually quite terrifying, and the audiobook production I think had some music and stuff, so that helped with the mood. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a little hard to follow an audiobook, which is the only reason I didn't give it 5 out of 5 stars, because I did really enjoy listening to it. But if I wasn't focusing on it, it was really hard to because things jumped around a lot, characters did different things and were in different places, and that was a little confusing in the audiobook for me, because I tend to like listen to audio while I'm working or while I'm doing other things, and a little hard to follow, but overall, super. I really enjoyed it. It was terrifying, as I can see where the whole gothic subgenre came, because I think Dracula is the one attributed to being the first. So, anywho, 4 out of 5 stars. Gray morality. So, a lot of these books have characters that I could say or have gray morality, but I listened also to the audio production of The Sandman. I believe it's actually volumes 1, 2, and 3. And some of if you follow my Instagram, I had like a little section with stories, and I was calling it the Omnibus because it was like absurdly long. But apparently, it's just 3 of the volumes. I would say the reason I applied gray morality to this book is because you're following primarily throughout the 3 volumes the Sandman, and I would say he's kind of like the hero in his own story, in this story, because it is about him, but also he definitely has gray morals and is willing to like get what he wants over like protecting the lives of others and stuff. So he's not quite an anti-hero, but definitely has some gray morality going on there. I really enjoyed the audible production. It was very terrifying. I do want to go back and read the like graphic novels, but they don't have them at my library, and I'm poor, so we're not going to go buy them right now. So I'm waiting until they come back on my library. They have volume 4, so I could always start there, but I think I want to see, like, I've heard the artwork is really cool. I will warn that the audiobook production here, while it's done very well, if you're like me and actually terrified of, like, scary ambiance and things, like, I can read scary books all day, but the second there's music and sound effects, bounce out for me on that one. But it's a graphic audiobook, I believe is what they're called, where there's a full cast and there's music and all that. It's intense. That's all I'll say about it. The Dark Academia is the last prompt I fulfilled, and I read The Secret History by Donna Tartt, participating adjacently in the Late Night Book Club. And I really enjoyed this book. The characters all sucked, so I also had this one down as gray morality. The only reason I'm not giving it a 5 out of 5 stars is because I really had a hard time relating to the characters. There is a lot of pretentiousness. It's about, like, the Ivy League school situation, so there is things, like, that I didn't love about the book. Like, people are probably racist and definitely homophobic and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's also, like, a LGBTQ character, so I felt like that was a kind of interesting ploy, and I often, if you've read this book and want to hear like some good cohesive thoughts that are not mine because I'm still processing, because this book was really dense, go check out the book club's live show for this. I'll link it down below. It was actually really good, and they covered some pretty good points, but overall I like the aesthetic and stuff for Dark Academia. I do think it is pretentious. But I think it's hard to tell if Donna Tartt kind of was writing this as a satire or an appreciation of the subgenre, because Richard's character, who the story is being told by, is very much an outsider to all of these things that happen that he's experiencing and stuff, even though he's like also there in this dark academic environment. It starts off with a murder. I was captivated pretty early on, and I really did appreciate the beautiful writing because it was gorgeous writing. I've heard some people say the beginning is pretty slow, and yeah, it's slow, but I still really enjoyed it, so take with that what you will, 4 to 5 stars. The other books I read this month, so that was Gothtober. There was a few other prompts that I was not able to fulfill, which is at least on individual books, the LGBTQ+, disability rep, modern retelling, and bones. I think a few of the books did apply to some of those categories. Like I could say that So You Want to Talk About Race also talks about like LGBTQ+ rights, just because the author is a lesbian. I believe she mentioned that in the book, or if she's bisexual, one of those two. And she does talk about how that affects other things in addition to the race issues that she faces. Again, there was a gay character in this book, and I was not able to. I was going to try and read the Cyborg Tinkerer for both disability rep and the LGBTQ as well, but I was unable to squeeze it in this month because this month was nuts. I read like 14 books. Bones, I believe we do see Bones in Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and Dracula, and the Sandman. Modern retelling, I wasn't really able to find like a gothic modern retelling because this is my first kind of like delve officially into the genre. So if you have any gothic modern retelling recommendations, please do let me know. I would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, that's all for Gothtoberfest. Now let's get into everything else I read. Alright, so now I'm going to basically just fill in the books in chronological order of when I read them. I listened to the audio production of When Women Ruled the World. Can't tell who it's by from this tiny Goodreads picture, but it was a really interesting nonfiction work about 5 of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs that were women who, like, by one way or another, like, took or kind of superseded their male counterparts, pharaohs, to kind of really actually be considered a female pharaoh. So that was a really interesting story. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of using that, the historical aspect of like what it took to be a female pharaoh, and comparing that to like the women in power we see today, and like why back then and even still now we have like these gender gaps in representation for people in power. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. It wasn't exceptional. Like, I probably won't re-listen to it or reread it, but it was definitely a very good informative sort of situation. I then read Misery by Stephen King, which I toyed with the idea of giving it a 4-star, which I think it's a 4-star on my Goodreads, but I actually changed my mind. 3 stars. It was really well written and all of that, obviously, and I liked the story. I don't know, it just didn't do the same thing for me. There was too much, like, waiting. For me to give, like, a King book, like, a 4 or 5 star, I need to, like, be on the edge of my seat for most of the event. There was a lot of, like, waiting, and the descent into madness by our villain here was well done. It wasn't my favorite I've ever read, so I enjoyed it. It was kind of hard for me to get through, just because I was, like, had a bunch of other things going on at that time, so that might have affected my rating, but I read it. It's on. I'm glad I did. I was also anticipating reading Carrie this month. I didn't quite get to it, so it is going to get bumped to November, and hopefully I can read it then. Whenever I do read Carrie, like I mentioned, I'll do a full review on all 3 of those books and add it to my, like, author series. So yeah, what did I read next? Scrolling up here. Talked about all those. Gotta move my camera so I can see the Goodreads behind me. I listened to The Doors of Perception which I technically started the last day of October and then finished like an hour into the first day of November. So that's kind of why I'm putting it here. I did use it as my first part of the 1,000 Doors Readathon, so maybe it should be in November, but either way, we're here now. I'm already talking about it. It's all good. It's basically it was one on I got it on Audible. It's basically a reiteration, or kind of like not a reiteration, sorry, words are hard today, but it basically is Aldous Huxley talking about the time he took mesocline, which is a drug that it kind of, the drug in and of itself is referenced as, at least in the stories, like the all of the highs, like all of the good times you have if you're schizophrenic. So it basically was like him accounting his experience with that, and he basically had people monitoring him, watching him, recording him, asking him very pointed questions while he was on this drug trip. So it's a 2-hour listen. It was pretty interesting. I'm gonna give it 3 stars because I like didn't really know what I was getting into with it. And I was just like, it's 2 hours. Someone told me to read more Huxley. I was expecting like fiction, and then I was like, oh, I just didn't even read the synopsis on this one. So it was interesting, and I did mention that I used it as my first prompt to fulfill the Breaking Bad first door from the 1,000 Doors Readathon. And that was the last book I read this month.